Square Nation? My name is Adrian, and welcome back to No Counters, No Combos. So I talked a little bit about transitioning towards accommodating more of the budget playstyle that we have available to us in the Dragon Ball Super card game. And today I'm going to go over my first attempt at um, a budget yellow Gotenks deck, as you can see here in front of you. So I kind of wanted to go over some of the cards that we have available to us, especially moving into the new ban list, and just kind of go over my choices for a little bit. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but for those budget players who are just either getting into the game or they're looking for a pretty good slash inexpensive deck, obviously this deck is not going to be able to break your budget. So we're going to get right into it. As for starters, as far as the cost of this deck, all the cards that you see here on the screen, you can get this deck for $42.34. So with $50, you can buy yourself a pretty competitive deck. Would I take this to like a regional or like a 1K? I don't know. It depends. I'm going to be testing this build this weekend at my local, and we're going to see how we do with it against more meta contenders. But for the most part, I think if you make your lines of play properly and you hit your curve when you're supposed to hit it, I think you'd be okay. So first we're going to go over the secret rare, or the one of Fu Shrouded in Mystery. So this card's always been kind of good since it came out. It's an overwhelm 10 for 6 energy. It has double strike and auto. When you play this card using overwhelm, your opponent can't activate skills on cards other than their leader until the beginning of your next turn. So it essentially stops your opponent from playing the game for a turn. So if you get this guy down, he's mainly going to finish the game for you, but if there's that slight chance that you can't put your opponent away, he's basically not going to allow your opponent to have a follow-up turn. And yellow itself is just a very good defensive color, so you're going to have a lot of different plays that you can make moving forward. Obviously it's pretty budget. I mean, he's not too expensive. He's an older card, but it's a pretty effective card. There's a lot of skills that go off in the game right now with battle cards and extra cards and super combos and stuff like that. So, isolating your opponent to only be able to activate their leader could be detrimental for them to continue to play the game. So the next card, obviously, we have the one Furthering Destruction Champa. I don't think 2 is necessary because this deck does draw a lot of cards. If you don't know what the leader does when he's unawakened, he's an auto once per turn. When this card attacks, you can draw 1 card and then add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. It's optional. You don't have to add the life. So depending on what matchup you're in, I don't necessarily recommend taking the life because there are a lot of aggro decks right now in the format. So the longer you stay at the life total, the better, because you want to go for the long game. And then when you awaken, when you're at 4 or less life, you can flip this card over and untap 2. So it's really a good untap 2 leader. And then on the back side, same auto, except for the take a life, obviously. Auto, once per turn, draw a card. And then he has once per turn, when your opponent activates a extra card, you can draw 1 card and then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and switch it to rest mode, which is pretty good. Gives you that utility of being able to slow your opponent down if they activate your extra cards or whatnot, on their turn. Or if they go to negate, an attack or something by using a counter, you can draw a card. And then once per turn, when you activate Union Fusion, this card gains plus 5,000 power and critical for the turn, which, as you can see, we're going to get into the fusion package shortly here. So really good generic leader. The Broly leader that we used to have before the errata was really good. Very generic, similar effect on tap 2 leader. So this is probably going to be your best yellow leader in the game right now, because it has just a generically good effect, to facilitate not only its specific archetype strategy, but also, pretty generic yellow strategies as well. So the Unison of the deck is the Super Saiyan Gogeta Dynamic Unison. He's 2 restricted yellow, 15k power, permanent. If all of your energy is in rest mode, your mono yellow leader card gets plus 5,000 power for your opponent's turn. So your opponent is going to have to swing at a 20k leader constantly and combo up. Auto once per turn. When your opponent activates an extra card, add a marker to this card. Really good. And his uptick 1, activate main. You may choose 2 cards, 2 yellow cards in your hand, discard them. If you do, draw 2 cards. You don't have to discard cards You can still increase the marker without using the effect, because it's a May effect. It's not mandatory. But if you don't, obviously discard 2 cards, and you're not going to draw 2 cards. And then his activate main -4 markers during your opponent's next charge phase. Your opponent can only switch up to 2 energy to active mode. So if you have the markers to do it and your opponent is tapped out on your turn, and for some reason you can't finish them off, you can always -4, and then when your opponent's turn starts, they're only going to be able to untap those 2 energy. So it's really good. It puts a lot of pressure because the 15k Unison, he's going to come down with at least 2 markers and gain 1 right away, so he's going to have 3. It's going to be a big hassle for your opponent to deal with this, especially because you're in yellow and you have such good defensive options. He's going to stick around, so we just play 4 of him as our main Unison, and then we're going to go into some of our fusion package now. After we get out of the super combo here, we have Counterblast on Gohan. There's a lot of different super combos you can play with a yellow leader. Standard, 10k draw. But I like the versatility of this guy because he's a 1-drop, so you can actually play him and get value if you need to. But he's a super combo auto. If your leader is yellow and your life is 4 or less, when you combo with this card, choose 1. You can draw a card, or if it's your opponent's, during your turn, if your opponent has 5 or more cards in rest mode, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost 5 or less in rest mode and KO it. Auto, when this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and switch it to rest mode. So he's got a lot of utility there. If your opponent decides to go in for a swing and taps out all their energy, and it's a card doesn't have barrier or anything like that, you can combo with this card and just pop it if it's 5 or less. So it's really interesting because it has like that built-in Shugesh Explosive Spirit Son Goku effect to it, but obviously it's going to be 5 drop or less and with no barrier. So that's our super combo there. Now we're going to go into our fusion package. So we're playing 3 of the Sun Goten Flash of Brilliance and 3 of the Trunks Flash of Brilliance. These guys are essentially the same card except different names. They have the same activate main. If your leader card is yellow Gotenks Adolescent, you can choose 1 yellow card in your hand, discard it, and you can add this card from your drop area to your hand. You can't activate this skill for the rest of the turn. So you can only add them once from your drop area to your hand for that turn. But these are good because it's your fusion fodder that you need for Union Fusion. You can combo them off early and get them back later if you really need to. And the Goten does exactly the same thing. There are 2 other choices you can use. You can use the 2-drops, but they only fetch them from deck. I think this is just more versatile, especially because you're going to be triggering your Vegito Unison by discarding 2 and then drawing 2. So you're going to get these pretty live. You're essentially not going to be negging yourself. You're just going to kind of be recycling the cards that currently exist in your hand and stuff like that. So those are going to be your Union Fusion targets for the next couple of cards we're going to go over. So obviously we're playing the 7-drop SR. Only playing 3 of. He is a 10k one. He is a 1-cost 10k combo. You don't want to clog the hand too much with 10ks. But this card's really great. I mean, double strike, dual attack, Union Fusion for 3 yellows, draw 2 cards. You have to use a yellow Goten and Trunks GT for fusion. When this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, ignoring barrier, negate its skills for the turn, then KO it. So it's really good because it gets around Indestructible if they don't have barrier. Because it's negating its skills, Indestructible will be wiped off of the card, and then they just KO it because the first line of text is you choose your opponent's battle card in rest mode, ignoring barrier. So you're already choosing a target. If it has Indestructible, you're going to be getting its skill and then KOing it. So it's a good way of getting around Indestructible cards. It's a good way of getting around, like, big finishers. If you tap something down, with your Unison, or if you tap something down with one of your extra cards, and you just need to pop something, you could do it that way. But obviously you're going to be drawing 2 cards when you play this guy, and he's a double strike dual attack finisher, so he's going to be pressuring for 25k double strike both times. And the 2 cards that you used for your fusion material, you're going to draw right back. So there's really no downside of playing this guy. I mean, the whole purpose of this deck is to get to at least turn 4 or 5, so you can have energy for utilization offensively and defensively. So playing a 3-drop bomb, essentially, I don't feel is invaluable at all. And the next 2 cards we're going to go over, we have here Gotenks Overwhelming Might. We're only playing 1 of, and we're also playing 1 of the Gotenks The Power of Fusion. You could play more if you want to. For deck space reasons, I wanted to keep it as close to 50 cards as possible. But these guys are also pretty good. I mean, they're essentially, you play them a turn earlier for 2 energy. Overwhelming Might is a critical 20k. Union Fusion for 2. When this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, negate its skills for the turn, draw one card. Excuse me. And then you can activate main, place this card at the bottom of the owner's deck, add 1 yellow Goten and 1 yellow Trunks GT from your drop area to your hand. Gotenks the Power of Fusion, which is the other one that we're playing, is a double striker, 2 yellow, yellow Sun Goten and Trunks GT. When this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards of rest mode, KO it, draw 1 card, activate main, place it at the bottom, add the 2 fusion materials back to your hand. So the reason I like these guys is because the Overwhelming Might negates skills and draws a card, and then the Power of Fusion can actually KO cards that are in rest mode. So there's disruption there. Like if you play Overwhelming Might and your opponent has a blocker, you can negate that blocker. So you have versatility in your situations on what you want to play. The best thing about it is if you have enough energy, or if it's your Awaken turn, you can play one of them, do what you have to do, activate main, get the materials back, Awaken, untap 2, and then play the other one. So if you have the right amount of cards and the right amount of energy to do so, you can play both of these in the same turn, and then activate main, put them at the bottom of the deck to get your materials right back to your hand for defense. So I don't find there being in value to playing these, and it's cool because it's archetype specific and you're staying within the theme of the deck while also being able to put pressure. If you curve everything out turn 1, you're going to do shenanigans, or you're going to do whatever it is you're going to do with your swap, which we're going to get into. Turn 2, you can either swap or go into your fusions, and then turn 3, depending on mana restrictions and where you're at, you can essentially go into your big bomb if that's what you wanted to do. So I think this just has a lot of versatility, and it's a lot of fun, and I definitely encourage you guys to try out the Union Fusion aspect of this deck. The next card, we're playing one of Dark Dragon Slaying Bullet. I like the 2-drop counterplays. I made a Tech Talk video about the 2-drop counterplays and how they're really good budget options for counterplay skills. But again, for deck space reasons, and we are playing a good amount of extra cards in this deck, I felt like that 1 Dragon Slaying Bullet was enough, because my opponent's card's going to come in tapped with no skills, and then I could just pop it with one of my destruction effects for tapped creatures or tapped battle cards. So I didn't feel like it was detrimental. And obviously you need a Unison on board, so they are more situational. Your Unison is going to stick for as long as it possibly can, but it's definitely going to be a target for your opponent to try to remove. So you don't want to run into the situation where you have 2 of these and you can't play them. So I think 1 is a good amount. You do draw enough cards in this deck to see it, so I don't think 1 is ever going to run into any issues, with being able to see it and then being able to play it effectively in the game. So the next card, we're kind of getting into our budget options, or our different takes. So for the most part, the top tier versions of this deck will play Bardock Raiders Warcry, which is the 2-drop combo ape. That is amazing. Definitely why I got a reprint, but that card, even the reprint, is like $10 a piece. So you're talking $40 for a playset. So I was looking and looking in my brain and racking my brain and looking for cards that do similar things, but there's really nothing that comes close to Bardock, because he's giving you a 20k body on board with double strike and tapping down a card when he comes into play. But we have this No Opening Sun Goku here. It's a very old card. It's from set 3, Crossworlds. It doesn't do any of the fancy ape stuff, like give you a double striker or a 20k or tap a creature, but it is one of those OG combo into play battle cards. And if you time this right, you can swarm your board by playing these guys in. He also has a pretty nifty auto. If your leader card is yellow, after you combo, you play him in rest mode, and then you can choose up to 1 card from your life and add it to your hand. So it's another awakening condition. Again, like I said earlier, I probably wouldn't recommend awakening as fast as possible, but if you feel like you're playing a slower, grindier game, or you're playing against hand control or something like that, and you just need to use your life pile as a resource, this is another way of getting cards to your hand. Now, primarily, I'm going to be playing this guy defensively on my opponent's either last swing or second to last swing that they're not going to combo over, just so I can get that body on board. So because he's not 20k, he doesn't accrue value like Raiders Warcry does, because it's a 20k body. An Awakened Leader can easily just swing at this guy, and then you have to combo to save it. So there are definitely I'm not saying it's anywhere near as good as Raiders Warcry, but it's a budget option for you to do something similar by putting a body on board for 1 energy. There's also a Frieza card that does it, but I felt like using the Goku because it had that extra versatility of helping you self awaken if you needed to. So that's just a nifty budget option. Obviously, we're playing 3 Nimbus. I still think Flying Nimbus is a really good negate. Tapping 1 yellow and pitching a yellow card, which you're going to have plenty of in this deck, to essentially stop your opponent's turn or slow down your opponent from attacking you multiple times is fantastic. There's not a lot of interaction with Unison cards, which is rough, but you know, if your opponent leads with the leader swing and you Nimbus, they're only going to be able to swing with the Unison and 1 more card. So you're essentially reducing the amount of times they're going to be able to hit you. And sometimes in Dragon Ball, all you need is that extra turn. So I like 3 Nimbus. Then we're going to go into kind of like a swap package here. So obviously with the announcement of the ban list and Goten coming off of the ban list, effective October 2nd, there's going to be a lot of experimentation with the swap mechanic. The best thing about the swap mechanic is it's super budget friendly. Your starters are going to be your Grandpa Gohan and your Goten essentially. For 1 energy, you're going to play your Grandpa Gohan, and then he's going to allow you to swap into Goten. When Goten attacks, he's going to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You get to choose one of those cards, add it to your hand, and put the rest at the bottom. Early game, it's great because it helps filter through your deck and kind of correct your next couple of draws by putting cards you might not need at the bottom. But it's going to help you see a lot of your different pieces, and it's going to essentially act as like a pseudo blocker. Your opponent's definitely going to want to get rid of your Gotenks as soon as possible. Your Gotens as soon as possible. So your opponent's not going to want you to continue to get value off of Goten, so it's going to make it an easy target. So swapping Grandpa Gohan into Goten is really good. You know, it's a play that we've seen many a time, you know, back in the day when Storm was at its peak. So it's definitely something I'm excited to try and, you know, in real life and see how it goes. And then the obviously the 4 of Dependable Dynasty Son Goku. This is just another swap target off of Grandpa Gohan. So once your opponent's leader is awakened, Goten essentially doesn't threat anymore unless you combo a card into him. So if you're looking for a filter, then yeah, it's totally fine. You don't have to worry about, you know, doing damage. If you want to gain passive, you know, advantage, you can just swing with Goten and scry the top 3, or look at the top 3 cards. But late game, if you want to start putting pressure, the Dependable Dynasty is going to come in and swing for 15k. Now, obviously, you want to watch out against green decks because Shocking Death Ball is a thing. But, you know, for the most part, those were problems that we always had to deal with when Storm was at its peak. They're just going to be continuing problems as we move forward into these newer strategies and metas. You know, counterplays are a thing. You know, so it's not just like windmill slam your cards on the table and, you know, turn sideways. You're going to have to really see where you're at in the game. But facilitating a 1-drop into a 2-drop for 1 energy is always good. Like I said, playing stuff for cheaper than it's supposed to cost is always great. And being able to pressure with that 15k Goku is always going to be good once your opponent's awakened. So the next card we're going to talk about is Time Magic. Time Magic is a Sparking Negate. Sparking Negates are really good, especially, you know, if you're tapped out, if you need that extra line of defense, if your opponent's going to be swinging at you with a dual attacker or a triple attacker or something like that, it's going to restand and try to hit you for more damage. Time Magic is fantastic because it ignores barrier and it's going to stop your opponent from being able to attack multiple times with 1 battle card. So it's just a really good card. If you need, for any reason, you need to self-awaken, you know, defensively, you can do it. If you have Sparking 5, and you're pretty much going to have that, you know, probably by turn 3 at least, I would say, or maybe turn 4, because you're not overwhelming in this deck. And you're not a burst leader, but there are ways of putting cards in the drop area for obvious reasons. Time Magic is just a solid card. Now, Restraint. So I usually build my decks, like I try to build the best version of my deck in the main deck, and then depending on the matchups, I'll slide into other pieces. So I try to build, so I have the mentality of going into a best of 1 format, so I don't have the crutch of a side deck. Sometimes people will build their deck to be as consistent as possible, but there's specific matchups that you just, you know, you not auto lose, but you're just not helping yourself, and then that's where you dig into the side deck. I have the opposite thought process. I like to build the deck for a best of one, or to try to win game one effectively and then side into whatever else I might need for the matchup. So restraint is just one of the drop counters that we got in set 7. Obviously, with Invoker having a lot of success lately, this is one of those things you'll be able to activate from the drop area to stop, Victory Strike or the Invoker or whatnot. It's just a really good card. It's a good discard outlet for your Gotenks. It's a good discard outlet for your Gogeta Unison. It's just a solid card. I mean, counterattack if your leader card is yellow. Negate the attack, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 1 or less, which is the rest mode. That's not as relevant, but the permanent of being able to activate this card from the drop area just by removing it from game is really good. 1 yellow card from hand and this card itself from game, and then you can activate it from your drop area for 1 yellow. So you're getting 2 negates out of it. Obviously, once you use it, you can't activate it for the rest of the turn, so you'd have to use it, wait a turn, and then have it in your drop area to use it again. But I like having the versatility. I like this format of 6 counters, at least 6 counter attacks rather. 3 main ones, 2 secondary ones, and then 1 drop counter. I think moving forward that could be a good ratio in building decks. Just having a main counter, unless you're in blue, you're always going to jam just 4-dimension magic in there. But moving forward, I think 6 attack counters is pretty decent, especially if you space them out properly. So the next card is Swift Retaliation Cooler. This card can be pretty pricey if you have the foil version, but the non-foil version is just a couple of cents. And it's great because you're playing a mono-yellow strategy. This is essentially the equivalent to Battering Laser. So there are instances where you're going to have enough energy to play your 7-drop Gotenks Fusion and still have 3 energy open for Cooler. So you definitely don't want to play Cooler on the first swing. You want to swing out and see what your opponent does if you want to threaten them for lethal. If they combo out, whatever, they just wasted all that advantage, and then you can go again, and then you can use the Swift Retaliation Cooler to stop their last counter if they have one. The good thing about it is, because you're playing a mono-yellow deck, when you play him, or when you use his counter skill, if you have 6 or more cards in rest mode, you draw another card. So for the most part, you're going to try to, do whatever it is you have to do, move your board state. In this deck, it's very easy because for the most part, you're going to be playing, some type of a threat first and then going into this guy. So as long as 2 energy, your leader are tapped, once he comes out for 3, that's 6 cards. So he's going to essentially draw you a card when he's played and then draw you an additional card as a counter. So you're going to get 2 extra cards and then more combo power or another 15k body on board. So I like playing 2. You really only need to see 1, but I like playing 2 just in case, something happens. It's never a bad card to have multiples of. You can always charge it early depending on the matchup. But you definitely want to see this guy. I don't think 1 is the right number. I think 2 is the right number. It's only a 5k combo. It's not going to clog in your hand. And it's just one of those things where I think it's beneficial to have, especially in a yellow strategy. The next card I wanted to go over is Great Ape Bardock, Might of the Resistance. So this is one of the anniversary box cards that we got for 2020. Again, if it's the foil version, it's pretty expensive, but the non-foil version is super cheap. I think I just picked up a playset for like less than $2. So it's a unique critical blocker, so we have to make sure that we don't have multiple, or we don't attempt to play multiples of this guy on the field at the same time. But critical blocker on an ape is fantastic. Permanent, you can only play mono-yellow Saiyan cards. So while he's out on the field, you can't play your Unison. Everything else in the deck essentially is a mono-yellow Saiyan, except for Fu, Swift Retaliation Cooler, and your Unison. Because Unisons don't have traits, they're technically not a Saiyan card. So you can't play your Unison unless there was a specific ruling against it. To my knowledge, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but because there's no specific trait on the Unison card, it doesn't specify that it's a Saiyan. So I would assume that you can't play it. But if I'm wrong, just let me know in the comment section down below. So the reason I like this guy is because he's similar to No Openings. Auto, if your leader is yellow, at the end of a battle where you combo with this card, you can put it into play. And it doesn't say it has to be in rest mode. So you can just put this card into play in active mode, which is fantastic because you get a 10k combo out of it, and now you're putting a blocker onto the board so you can use it defensively, or for next turn, you're going to have a critical 15k attacker, which is, again, 15k crit. If it's early, it's going to do damage. If you throw a Champa into it or you combo up a couple cards into it, it's just another thing for your opponent to deal with, and the fact that it has blocker can give you another defensive option. And if you get a lot of these early, you can just play them one at a time. I mean, you're playing a 4-drop for 1 energy, so you're getting value off of the combo into play stuff. The fact that he comes into play active is insane, because the Goku doesn't, but this card is amazing. Again, super budget option. And then the last card, obviously, we talked about it a little earlier, but Scrambling Assault Sun Goten coming off the ban list. I think you're going to see a lot of different experimentations with this card. There probably is an argument you can make on using a Gotenks leader like this with the swap into Height of Mastery strategy. That's something that's interesting to me. I might try it out, but I wanted to at least try the fusion mechanic first, because Path to Greatness into Height of Mastery is a proven strategy. So I wanted to try something a little bit different, especially with all the new set 10 cards and stuff like that. But obviously moving forward, this deck will probably mutate towards more of that lineage focus, Height of Mastery combo, something like that. But Goten is just such a good filter card. And like I said, you guys can get this exact same deck for a whopping $42.34. I mean, if it doesn't get any more budget than that, I'm not exactly sure. $50, a $50 budget for a decent semi-competitive deck that you can take to a local, jam a couple games in, sneak some wins out. As long as you play tight and your play lines are crisp, I think you'll be fine. $50 on a budget, I get it. Maybe you buy a deck for $50, you play with it for a couple of months until you start building up your card pool, and then you look into another type of build or another type of deck. But for the most part, I definitely wanted to showcase this because it's definitely possible to play Dragon Ball on a budget. You don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on, meta staples. Are those cards great? Absolutely. But can you justify spending $200 on a playset of cards, for a hobby? It depends on you. It depends on your situation. Everybody has different situations, and I don't want this video to be much longer, but I wanted to kind of just let you guys know that are watching this, that are budget players and you have restrictions financially, you can still enjoy this game too. This game is not pay to play. For the longest time when it first came out, back in the day between set 1 and set 2 meta, there weren't a lot of expensive cards that were featured in top tier decks. I think the most expensive card back in the day was the 4-drop Kale Super Rare from set 2 that Starter Coup used a lot, as part of that blue-green strategy. But, this is a hobby at the end of the day. This is something that you can do to have fun and to go and just, blow off some steam and have an escape or have a different avenue. And I want everybody to be able to play this game. New players coming in, returning players that haven't played for a while. It's always great and it's always good to be able to start on a budget and then slowly build your collection. Now, I'm not saying that you're always going to be a budget player, but for the time being, at least you have options. So let me know what you guys think about this deck profile down in the comment section below. We're definitely going to be doing more of these. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to seeing what everybody's interested in, having a budget interpretation on it. I'm going to be trying this deck this weekend at my local. I'm going to see if I can get some gameplay footage so we can go over play lines and commentary and stuff like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry if it was a little long. I do apologize for that. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Be there or be squared.